Yes, now, and welcome back to episode 117 of the Top Loaded podcast. And Harry, my friend, I heard that you got absolutely destroyed at darts yesterday, but how are you doing, my friend?
I mean, yeah, I've not really got a lot of words to describe the display of darts yesterday, but yeah, I guess you've had a lot more practice than I have. But otherwise, yeah, for suffering from my defeat, I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I can't complain at all. Yeah, it was a bit of a mixed match, but probably just like a certain
Just a
Premier
little
League
bit.
team and their charges, but we won't go into that on this episode of the Top Load podcast. However, obviously, before we introduce our very special guest, just a reminder to everyone, this episode is powered to you by Third Down Space, your number one space for card supplies, card equipment, everything what you need, they have it. And if you use TTP10, you get 10% off. But now introducing our very special guest, well, you might know Football Cards Direct, you might know Trade Week Consignments, well, all of you will do. But we're very happy to be joined on camera by Paul and then the glamorous assistant behind the screen, where you can't see what's been setting everything up. Obviously, Kelly as well. But Paul, welcome to the Top Loaded podcast.
Good evening. How are you?
No, we're doing very well. And like I say, it's been a long time coming this episode, and we did have pretty much a pre-podcast before the podcast, but I think there's no better place to start. We're going to start with Football Cards Direct because there's a lot to talk about. But just for brief, for people who don't know, like, how long has it been running Football Cards Direct now?
Football Cards Direct, the name itself has been running since 2003. We started a business, KGF Cards, in 2015. We bought Football Cards Direct in 2018. So Football Cards Direct, the name, has got quite a history. It was a guy called Phil Daniels that set Football Cards Direct up. He now runs Football Cards World, I believe, or he might have just sold that. Now he's doing a sticker site. In 2018, he wanted to move in a different direction, so we bought Football Cards Direct.
And I was going to say, there's been quite a few cards and stickers that have followed since that acquisition. Obviously, your original company, but that's what some people don't realise is I would say it's quite a unique way that you're obviously one of the ones that actually have such a high quantity of stickers and cards that I could only imagine the amount of base cards, especially with the new products. We're not going to talk about that, and stickers. But how do you even manage that inventory? Because I think me and Harry struggle with about 50 cards, not like 100,000 cards or whatever it might be.
Great difficulty sometimes. We've got in stock, we've probably got around about 12.5 million cards and stickers, of which about 10% of those are listed anywhere. So we've got our work cut out to get on top of them all.
That's good. I was going to say, I remember.
Now I know where my missing Gunther Steiner is going to be.
Quite possibly, and we don't know it. That's the trouble.
Exactly.
I was going to say, it's crazy to think, because I know a lot of people say, like, Burbank in America, how big it is and how many cards they have in stock. But obviously, you're very similar. But for you, it's very different, like the UK scene. We know we always say that, but a lot of people are collecting their sets, finishing off their sticker books. And I know we was laughing and joking before regarding like stickers, but especially some of these albums now, there's 650 stickers in it. And if you've got even 5 per people, you're already at 3,000 stickers. So does it get to a point, especially with the stickers now, that it's a bit like you look at it and thinking, oh, can you just knock a couple of 100 stickers off just to make it a little bit easier for us?
It would make it a lot easier, yeah. Stickers, as we spoke about a little bit pre-podcast, stickers are very time-consuming. And as you say, a lot of sticker albums have got 700 plus individual items in them. So yeah, stickers are hard work. I would much sooner deal with cards if I could all the time, but stickers is part of our business as well.
I was going to say, the stickers is obviously, it's what the UK scene was built on, is the history of the stickers, but also likes of Match Attacks and Adrenaline, everything like that as well. So it was obviously, that's before the so-called hobby term, which is realistically 4 to 5 years old, so to speak. Obviously, everyone grew up on the Match Attacks and Adrenaline. So it still runs in the background very successfully. And that's still, most people in the UK will be collecting your Match Attacks and Adrenaline. So have you seen a progression of like people actually do start with Adrenaline and Match Attacks still to this day, on like, especially through football cards, like transition into buying your hobby cards and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We really ventured into the hobby side of things quite heavily about 4 to 5 years ago at the start of the boom. Before that, we were very mainly Match Attacks and Adrenaline. But yeah, we've seen a huge amount of people transition to the hobby products from Match Attax and Adrenaline. But in saying that, those people still do collect Match Attax and Adrenaline as well. But yeah, we've got customers. Just looking over at Kelly, because Kelly deals with the customer side of things a lot more than I do. But yeah, we've got customers now that have always been customers of ours, buying, you know, lots of Match Attax and Adrenaline to finish off their collections, that are now buying lots of Chrome, Prism, Finest, Museum, everything else to complete collections. They want of those. Slightly different, because if Museum, you're maybe not looking for a whole base collection, but you're still getting the collectors that are trying to complete those teams or specific players.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's crazy. Even moving away from like how we was collecting stickers and match, there's a completion in all of us still, and no matter what set you're trying to buy, even if it's just a player, you're going for the full rainbow, for example. So, do you think that's just like natural background from the UK, that you're always going to try and find a way of completing something, even if it doesn't need to be completed?
I think it's a combination of, you know, football fanatics that we are in this country, and that collector in all of us. It's, you know, I'm a hoarder myself. It's not just cards and football stuff. It's, you know, everything. I don't like throwing anything away, because I think, oh, one day I might need that, or one day it might be worth something. And I think that's in a lot of us anyway, and that sort of translates to the way we buy and collect and hoard, as well as obviously wanting to complete those collections.
Like I say, having a massive inventory. I know you mentioned the word prior, obviously the hobby and the booming thing. We did speak about this, but I find it's fascinating because there was a time when it just went crazy. People were buying whatever card it was. It could be base cards for near enough a fat one, whatever. How weird must it have been for you having that inventory already listed on a website that potentially had no interest at all, maybe one person in a few months, to maybe having 20 times the eyes and people trying to buy it?
Yeah, we were a little bit slow off the mark, to be honest with you. It's probably a couple of months until we reacted. And it was because we have got that huge inventory. It took us a couple of months really to see what was happening. And Mbappe 2018 base cards that we've had in stock for a year, all of a sudden they'd flown out the door in a week. They hadn't sold for a year, and they were only £4 or £5 at the time, and nobody had bought one for a year. But then overnight, they just all sold. That was the effect of the boom, and it really was almost an overnight thing. But because of the huge inventory we've got, it was almost impossible to start changing prices of everything to keep up.
I was going to say, I don't think any of us could really keep up when it was happening, because it would be a random card for a random set, and all it took was like one person to mention it, and then it seemed like everyone wanted that. Some of them cards now, I was looking back on it the other day, some of them were going for about 50p to £1 now, which were going for £100. So, like I say, you probably even had cards that you had but not listed that people probably would have been going for, but it's just because you had the sheer quantity that you didn't know what was next. No one could have predicted what actually happened in that boom.
No, we at the time we had a couple of good friends that were also dealers in the hobby and traders, etc. Mainly with Match Attax and Adrenaline, and they had a much smaller inventory than we kept, and they probably reacted much better than we did. Yeah, they probably made a lot of money in that 3 to 6 month period at the start of the boom, whereas we were selling our Mbappes for £5.
Yeah, it's funny because I think we still look at it now when we see a 2014 World Cup Prism, even the base cards, we still look at it thinking it's going to do higher than what sometimes it does. But as well, having that inventory, I know we mentioned it before, like Mundi Chrome and stuff, sets like that become a lot more desirable, because they were, you know, obviously for people who don't know, Mundi Chrome is quite arguably like an equivalent of like Match Attax, but in Spain.
Yeah.
And these were cards that are not meant to be in good condition, and they were wanted by everyone, especially the Messi cards, Ronaldinho's, the early Ronaldo's. That, how did you find them ones as well? Because they weren't designed to be kept in the best condition, or they're not a so-called luxury product. They're just a base parallel, which that's the only thing you can get. But they just exploded, and to this day, in a perfect condition, it's just crazy numbers still.
Apart from the rookie Messi from Mundi Chrome in 2003, I've still got the full sets of every Monday Chromo all the way through to sort of 2017, just because we bought those as part of a bulk lot, and I've never really gone into them apart from to look for that Messi at one time.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to touch on, I think everyone would have stopped what they was doing during that boom to try and find that Messi.
The trouble is with Monday Chromo. The main trouble with Monday Chromo is the centering on Monday Chromo. They are awfully centered a lot of the time. So if you can find a rookie Messi perfectly centered, then I would say it is worth its weight in gold.
Oh yeah, just seeing that high grade in a Messi rookie is special. Like I say, there's a load of 6s and 7s, there's great money, but turning our attention obviously away from like the older sets and the boom, obviously looking at the modern day, obviously there is quite a few sets now. So how you keep on top of that, I do not know, because like we say, even in the last 4 weeks, the upcoming 4 weeks, it's probably like 12 sets. So how do you even navigate the like new releases and slightly older ones? Because like, for example, when we see you at shows, you've got cards from all the releases, but surely it gets a bit on top of you at times, because some days there could be 3 releases now.
It can do. Thankfully, we've got quite a good inventory system and a scanner that can process hundreds of cards a minute, etc., front and backs. We've got a third-party inventory that controls all of our stock. That's quantities and pricing. So once it goes into that inventory, we can throw it out to whatever platforms we want, eBay, our own platform, Trade, wherever we want to throw it out to, we can throw it out to.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially now there's so many different types of cards. It's not just where it was once upon a time, or when we used to collect match attacks. It was, you got the base cards. It's 1 to 400, whatever it might be. Now you've got the different parallels. You've got autos. You've got patches, patch autos, booklets. I've lost track of how many different things there are. So is that something as well? It's hard to keep up with, like with inventory systems, because they aren't just inventing new cards as we go along now, it seems.
I can keep up with all the parallels fairly easily with the hobby sets. When it comes to parallels with match attacks and stickers, I'm tending to struggle with those. There's parallels on top of parallels for those nowadays, so that's difficult with the size of the sets as well. Hobby wise, yeah, they're quite easy to do, because again we've got the scanner which will scan the whole lot through, and we've got a reader which will read the different numbers on the cards, etc. So they're fairly easy to keep up with, unless, like you say, we're getting 3 sets a week, which sometimes that can give us a bit of a backlog.
I was going to say, I'm going to mention the dreaded word base cards now. It's taken enough time, but obviously with certain releases, some releases are not as bad. Like your ones that you do create a lot of hits are not terrible, but even the top end sets, what have been released so far this year, if you're looking at like Pristine, that's another one that was right. There was quite a few.
I don't like that word.
Yeah, I think I should have like some sort of penalty for saying that one.
Yeah, that's not been one of my favourite sets this year. Definitely not.
Yeah, but how do you deal with like all these bases as base cards as well? Because some sets can be 2 hits, but 13 base cards, and it's like 12 packs of it. And you're like, how? Because yes, you might sell a few base cards, but for what they're worth now, is it worth even the hassle? I think that's what a lot of breakers are getting as well.
What we've started to do is we're starting to try and put an inventory together of full sets, which at present day they're probably 10 a penny really. But what we will do is we'll put a certain amount of base cards for sale on eBay, our own website, etc. But then we might make 12, 15 full sets of base cards, and we'll just hold them in stock for 5, 6, 7 years, and then further down the line, we'll have not just a sales platform for base sets, but also a library of base sets as well. So we've got a lot of Disney Chrome base sets, which they're selling for quite good money now, but further down the line, we might have had 5, 6, 7 Disney sets by then. Who knows? But that will still be the first Disney Chrome base set. So
I was going to say, would you compare, especially now with obviously it's branched out into different areas and means that, like if we look back to the 2014 World Cup, like even though it's a base set in that as well, but it's slightly more desirable to some people because it was the so-called first real hobby release, that they'll look back on Disney Chrome, they'll look back on even some sets that might go under the radar at the moment, like the cricket set that come out or Team GB, because they're different. Who knows what in 5 years someone might be like, oh, I really wish I had his card. That's what I think could be quite cool with like the Team GB set. There might be one person have one card ever in that set, but when they retire or win sports personality in next Olympics, even like anything can happen that just creates a more demand for a card that was previously just not really wanted.
Yeah, I think unless you are in a hurry to try and get some money back on your base cards, then maybe if you can put the full sets together and put them aside and forget about them for a number of years, they're probably, I can't see them being worth. Oh, what's happened here? Oh, you disappeared for a minute then. I can't see them being worth any less in 5 or 6 years' time than they are at the moment, because they are so much in an abundance at the moment, base cards, that people aren't buying them at the moment. So, 5, 6, 7 years' time, like you've just said, those sets might be a lot more desirable than they are now.
Yeah, I think that's obviously a thing to look at. But I think moving our attention over to obviously something that you recently did acquire, obviously, Trade We. Obviously, we spoke prior to the acquisition of it that there was a few consignment companies in the UK, but no one really standing out, and there was always that gap in the market. So is that something that you always looked at, that obviously it ties in having your like the inventory as well, that you had the background of listing cards up, but was that always an area that you see a gap within the UK?
When we purchased Trade we purchased it because 2 reasons really. We liked the name. We thought we could do something with the name and take it forwards. And secondly, we knew that as a business as it was at the time, it was struggling, and we didn't want to lose that name from the hobby. You see a lot of it on Instagram about people leaving, etc., and people getting fed up with things. And Trade We was recognised within the hobby, and if you start losing names that are recognised, it only does the hobby damage. So it was nice to keep it going. We never had any intention of keeping it on as a breaking site, because Trade We is owned obviously jointly by ourselves and Lucas at TFF.
Yeah.
We've already got the breaking side from Lucas at TFF. So our original plan was to build a trading platform where it was pretty much a Tinder for cards, where swipe right if you like that one, swipe left if you don't. I don't know how Tinder works. Kelly's told me that's how it works, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But then we got talking. But then we got talking to eBay, and we were talking about consignments, etc. And obviously, with Football Cards Direct, we've got a lot of experience in selling on eBay, and it seemed the right thing to do. So we started the ball rolling with that at the start of December, and the first auction went live on the 27th of January, I believe.
I was going to say, I've purchased quite a few items. I think it's fantastic, especially when I think like people have seen in the America with like Probstein or DC Sports 87, that it's great to have a platform, because I could go and list up 50 cards on my eBay, but I might get 10 to 15 watches. But if someone's scrolling through looking for a certain card, they see another card, it just brings more eyes to it. And I feel that's what we really did need in the UK, was a central platform just for people to have cards listed up. And it's great to see such a wide range of cards as well, that I could be scrolling through, I see women's cards, but then I'll see a Messi auto, then I'll see like a Owen Morgan autograph, and then I see a wrestling one. I'm like, it's great to see, because you actually do expose yourself to more items that you might not have known actually existed or even seen before.
Yeah, what we wanted to do was really create that liquidity back in the market with cards that might otherwise not have come to market. That goes right from cards that people have got in a box that they can't be bothered to do anything with, to, like you said, Messi autos, Messi one-of-ones, which sometimes a lot of people sit on them and look at them thinking, I'll sell this, and it never actually does make it to market. So that was the whole idea, is to get cards into the market that otherwise might not have been there. So that can range from 99p cards to £10,000 cards.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there any cards so far that you've been quite taken back if you've seen it, like when it's actually arrived in?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. I mean, there's one up at the moment, the Jude Bellingham rookie auto. That's a nice card, the one-of-one. There's a few Messis on at the moment. I think there's 2 Messi 1-of-1s. There's a Messi Immaculate booklet patch, auto patch on there. There's an Alex Morgan 1-of-1. We've obviously had the Jude Bellingham, Musiala on card auto from inception to 5. Oh, we've had 2 of those. Kelly's signaling to me. I think that was Sue. I think she was telling me we had 2 of those, or she was upset about something.
I was going to say, when I've scrolled through, I've seen some absolutely, for me personally, I'm always going to be quite biased towards the women's side of the hobby and the Arsenal side of the hobby. So I try not to look too much at, obviously, the main bits that I want. But have you seen like an upcrease as well in some of your niche products? Obviously, it helps now that there's more women's products available, but there definitely seems to be a lot of higher end women's stuff going on there as well. At the beginning, there was some really nice bits, but I've seen like Alex Morgan gold autos, for example. There's been some of the Mary Fowler redemptions from Donruss, but also some very low number chrome stuff from Sapphire as well. Is that nice to see as well, that it's not just men's cards on there, but the women's hobby as well is getting a bit of love as well within the community?
Well, that's exactly what it's designed to do. Is the people that might be putting those women's cards on, either they're not women's collectors, or that card, that player isn't one that would fit in with their PC, but it's going on there, and somebody else will see that, and it fits exactly with their PC. They are women's collectors, etc. Me personally, I love the women's sets. Been some of my favourite sets that have been released, just purely because they haven't got as many cards.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about it. I find it very funny how someone can pull a card, it goes into someone else's hands, and then you don't realise whose card it was until afterwards. And they're like, oh, there's one. It's funny enough, I won a Georgia Stanway Sapphire card on Tradeweed's Consignment, and it was GBW's, and I was like, well, I could just bought it straight off for you, mate. But you wouldn't have necessarily known someone had that card until it goes on there. But as I say, like now we've seen some of these elite auctions, what you're doing, where there's some very high-end cards. Was that Sank as well? I know you've spoken in the past about like themed auctions around like Champions League, Premier League, World Cups, whatever it might be. Has an elite one always been on the back of your mind as well, of having that the top, you'd say like the top 5 to 1% of actual items all run as a one kind of thing?
Yeah, what we're looking to do is hold elite auctions once a month, which should finish pretty much at the end of each month. This one falls to finish with the Champions League final that's finishing next weekend. What we can do in conjunction with eBay is we can run auctions, for specific events. So if there is like the start of the Euros or the end of the Euros, the Euro final, whatever it might be, England matches, we can run auctions for specific events in conjunction with email, and they'll promote them that way. Another thing that people may be not aware of, we can run personal lot auctions. So if somebody flipped around on my screen there, that was clever. If somebody has got a personal collection, a high value personal collection that they want to move on, or they want to change direction or what have you, we can run their auction. It can be called it could be called RP's prized collection auction, and that would then take place on an eBay homepage as your collection auction. So we can do those sort of things with eBay.
I was going to say, I find it fascinating that I remember I clicked on it once before, and it's I love eBay's algorithm because you looked at one card and they're like, well, we think you're going to like this one as well. And I remember it last time I was buying one of the items on trade, and then there was like, oh, you might like this one. I was like, they're going to just do this to me, the whole consignment. And I was like, right, like, watch list. But I think that's another great aspect of it, of two people might have a card very similar, and a collector might be like, I don't really want to pay £4 shipping here, £8 shipping there. But like you say, now they're both being run on the same auction, it's fantastic because you can combine the shipping on it, and then they come together. You know that you've got the guarantee of the item because obviously it's like you said, you're the ones actually list it up. So that must be you must see like a few people that, not rather than just buy the one card or the two, ends up being 5, 6, if not more, because it's the convenience of it all coming from one location at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. It works both ways. In fairness, it works for the buyer, works well for the buyer and the seller, because the the buyer's getting that convenience of combined shipments, etc. The seller, for want of a better word, we take all the risk. We will auctions that will finish on the Saturday, Sunday. We allow 4 days after the auction's finished for the buyers to make payment. We will then pay out on the Friday to anybody that's obviously consigned with us. We're paying out before any of the buyers are receiving their items. So we're taking that risk there that, if something goes wrong somewhere along the lines, it's us that's taking all that risk.
Yeah, I was going to say, for people who don't really understand, because it's not as easy as, it's not like a card show and someone gives you £5 in cash, you give them the card. It's not as simple as that. A lot of things can happen. You're relying on whatever postal service you use. Also, you're then requiring the buyer who's buying it to actually pay for it, like you say. So has there been any like stuff you had to overcome to begin with, like any challenges, or has it been one of them that you've been able to like use eBay and use other people to actually help you along the process?
Yeah, we've got. I mean, you're always going to get the issue of false bids on there and things like that, which people will get when you're running high value auctions, when you're running high volume auctions. You're going to get that. We have direct links into eBay fraud team. So eBay fraud team are looking at things constantly for us. If we see something suspicious, we will straight away flag that, and eBay fraud team will look at it straight away. It doesn't stop everything. It never will. It's not just the eBay as an auction platform or an auction site that has those problems. Every auction platform anywhere will have that exact problem. Yeah. So I'm just plugging my iPad in.
No, I think that's the thing of it's so hard to eradicate all of these things, because it's just natural that sadly you're going to have some people that will want to get the maximum out of their item. So you get the point where they do, if it's shill a bid, or they try and retract the bid at the last minute. So one thing what I like as well is some people will put a bid on not knowing it's going to win, and then they're like, oh, I don't really want to pay for it, which then will show a false comp as well. So do you find that's another quite a good thing? Obviously, there's pros and cons with everything, but auctions are very accurate to a certain degree comp, where it's not like a £400 buy now with it's crossed through to like 360. An auction is just people who want it will put their bid on to how much they actually do want to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. An auction is always the best way of seeing what a comparison is for a card or anything else for that matter. The buy it now, we do offer the buy it nows with trade with as well, but customers so far it seems they preferred to run everything at auction. There's nothing stopping anybody putting things on that buy it now. The only thing we ever advise against is running an auction with a reserve price.
Yeah.
Trouble is with the reserve price, you're paying 4.8% whether the item sells or not.
Yeah.
So if you put a reserve of £1,000 on for something and it's only a £200 card, then that's cost you 48 quid just for saying it's £1,000.
Yeah, that's it's a thing of it's so hard to price a card, because if someone's got emotional attachment with it, they might value it slightly higher, or it might be like a lot of people. You bought the card 2 years ago where the market was at a different price than what it is now, or even it could be a case of someone's paid 50 quid for the card, but now it's worth 300, but no one's going to pay that comp price. I might want to pay 200. So it's always quite an intriguing one. So when someone does fill out like the online submission form for when they're going to send items into you, is there anything you do recommend, like in terms of, is it people should just do their homework in terms of what they think the prices is, or is there a recommendation what you would go with? Because I know quite a few people are thinking about sending items off.
It's really down to the individual. Different people will think different ways. People might have £3,000-4,000 cards and they want to start at a 99p, see what it achieves. But again, it's down to the individual. If you've got a card that you want to start at a higher price, start at a higher price. If you're happy to start at a 99p and see where it ends up, go for it. See where it ends up. If you want to put it on a buy it now, put it on a buy it now for round about a sort of reasonable comparison to what you can find elsewhere, and put a best offer on it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's a lot of people need to do it for the first time, the auction. That they're going with skepticism about actually listing it up for £1, because it could theoretically finish at £1, or it could finish at £100, or if not more. So it's a game of luck, a game of gamble, whatever it might be. But do you feel like now it's another thing we say about education within the UK, but it's a time of everyone in the UK don't want to lose money in comparison to the US. Sometimes they will just throw a card up, could be worth 10,000, it might finish at 2,000. They'll go, oh, it is what it is, kind of thing. But do you think that's now something the UK's learnt, that your card's not always going to be worth how much you think it is, or how you're not going to get what you actually want for it, but sometimes you move on to the next item, get that money, and just go on to the next one?
I think from what we're seeing with trade win, it might not be the same across the whole market. From what we're seeing, people are more willing to move cards on now. I think with the amount of sets that are coming out frequently, people might still be holding on to their prized cards or their PC cards, but up until very recently, people were tending to hold on to a lot more than just their PC, and it was every parallel they were holding and everything else. Now we're starting to see that those are moving through the market a lot quicker, rather than, as I say, these sort of cards might have just been sat in a box for months, and in the end, people just don't know what they got in that box. So to just keep it moving through the market it's actually getting into the hands of somebody that does want that in their collection.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfectly put, because you might not think it, but there's at least one other person out there who does want that card, but they might not be able to get. And I think it's like when people, like we say before, completing sets or rainbows, that you might just be listing that one card to 199. That a lot of people are like, oh, I can't be bothered to list it up, it's high print, but someone be like, that's what I've wanted, that's what I've needed for all this time. And I think that's another great thing with consignments is people will generally list up a card maybe to 299, which they might not have listed themselves, but with the extra eyes and obviously with your team and everything setting up for, like listing out for them, that you're going to get cards that won't have come back into the UK market actually getting seen, which is a massive help, and which I'm still waiting for people for complete some of my rainbows.
Well, we have got a huge amount of cards coming through at the moment. Our postman sometimes is turning up, and he's like that. I don't know if you've ever seen that GIF for I think it's an Amazon driver where he's got boxes laden up and they're all over. And that's our postman some days now. It's phenomenal amount of cards, but it's interesting. We've got a full-time member of staff, Owen, who works out of the Liverpool office. We've just taken on another full-time member of staff in the Leicester office. So we are now building to be able to take more consignments on. At the moment, our maximum, which we hit fairly regularly, is about 900 to 1,000 cards a week. But we are now building where we can take far more than that.
I was going to say, because I remember when it was first starting up, and it was like the first few weeks, like trial runs of getting a few cards through now. But now hearing how well it's doing, and it's only going to get bigger with once more people know about it and will send cards off. And it's one of them. Someone might send off 5 cards the first time as a trial, and then they're like, "Oh, next time I'll send off 20," and then it might be 50. And so now, obviously, talking about scaling forward, is there any other plans for like the actual consignment side of it going forward, apart from like your elite auctions and like your themed auctions as well?
What we want to do is really stick to the auctions on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Those 4 days they've proven to be the best days for auctions. As we get more people listing buy it now cards, obviously that'll help take the pressure off of all the auctions. What we tend to do at the moment is, if we've got different sports, if we've got basketball, maybe Formula One, football, we could run each one of those every minute. What we try to do with, if it's just football, then there'll be a minute space between each card.
Yeah.
If it's basketball, obviously Formula One, NFL, we could actually have 4 a minute finishing, because there's different sports and we can run it that way. So that's one way that we can push forward with more auctions. Failing that, we're looking at really putting more specific auctions for specific events. Bit difficult at the moment with the majority of our stuff coming through as football, and we're at the end of the football season, and we've just got the Euros to come in a month's time, 3 weeks' time.
I was going to say, my last question about that, how has it been? Have you been getting many orders? Well, obviously outside of the UK, obviously with eBay, it's fantastic that anyone can click on from anywhere in the world and see it. So how has it been? Have you been getting orders from all different parts of the world? Obviously, especially the US, which is the most amount of eyes, but how's it been going on an international level as well?
Absolutely everywhere. We're sending cards out to places we've never sent cards out before. There's a huge amount of international eyes on. But in saying that, to balance it out, we have noticed there's a lot of the high value cards that are selling within the UK as well, that's nice to see, because throughout the boom and throughout a lot of the boom period, nearly all the high value items were going overseas. We're seeing a lot of those staying in the UK now, which is really nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's lovely to see, as we said before, the liquidity within the UK. We want to try and keep some of our cards on these aisles. It's nice to have our own collections as well as just trying to buy and sell. But I think that perfectly ties in, obviously, with another big announcement you did, Mason Reed, and obviously that's a brick and mortar store, which obviously I think we've said on a lot of occasions on here, we've got a few stores here and there, but to have kind of like a hub, I know which you're going to go for the hobby within the UK, apart from obviously being a bit delayed on when it's been opened, how interesting, how excited are you to finally be able to try and open these doors at this store now?
Yeah, really excited. The solicitors are doing the best to dampen that excitement for us over the last month. We were due to get the keys at the end of April. We're now due to get the keys this Friday. So we're a month behind. We were looking to try and open for the start of the Euros. Now it's going to be the end of the Euros if we're lucky. We've done our electricity installation reports. We've got our asbestos reports, which every time we think we've done everything, we need to get another report. So it's really exciting. As you said, our plans are to make it a hub. We don't just want to make it a retail shop. There's obviously other retail shops in the UK, and I think there's more springing up by the look of it. What we want to do is, because we will be bang centre of England, if you like. I can't say the UK because I think the centre of the UK is somewhere in Lancashire. But we're bang centre of England. The shop's opening in Loughborough, just off junction 23 of the M1. There's rail links to Loughborough. We wanted to make it all encompassing rather than just selling singles and slabs and sealed and supplies. There's a lot of S's in that. We're going to have streaming rooms. There's another S. We're going to have streaming rooms. There'll be trade and rip rooms. We've got a big room right at the very front of the building. People won't have seen it yet unless they've seen the sort of video that I put on Instagram. But the retail space, if you like, is a very big open space at the front as soon as you walk through. There's then 8 different offices as you walk down the corridors. 2 of them will be used for streaming rooms. There's one very, very big room that's right at the front, which has full-length windows. What we're going to do there is put a huge table and chairs in there and use that as a bit of a rip and trade room. So then people that are walking past as well, it might get there.
Yeah.
Oh, what's going on here? Let's go and have a look. But overall, it's going to be a place where if you just want to turn up, hang out, chat cards, look at cards, open boxes, jump it'd be a fully kitted out streaming rooms. If you want to jump in a streaming room and stream the box you've opened, or you paid a visit to the shop but you're due to be on Whatnot in half an hour's time, then jump on there and do what you want. So yeah, we want it to be all encompassing. We don't just want it to be a retail shop as such. It's obviously got to sell some products to make a bit of money to pay the overheads, but we also want it to be more of a community hub.
As I say, we were saying about all the S's, and I think the most important thing, the hobby and everything, is the social aspect of it. And it's always nice at card shows, like we say, to the night before, after the show, whatever it may be, you're just talking with people. But that's all nice, well and good when there's a show going on. But it's time there was a certain location that people might be like, you know what, someone I know lives in Manchester and I live in London. I don't want to go really up to Manchester. They don't want to come all the way down to London. So like I say, having something actually in the middle of the country, what makes it easy for everyone. And like you say, Loughborough is very good for the rail network links, the motorway links as well, that you might get a lot more people that might not want to travel to a card show, but might be like, no, I'll go and jump in the car for 45 minutes and go to the store and see what people are there. And that's the best thing about it, I think, it's going to be that people just meet new people. And then it's that massive circular aspect of it that, oh, they might buy a card off them. And it brings that whole new aspect of having that shop, which we see work so well in the States, which we've always been kind of needing that aspect of it, and it's taken it to the next level.
Yeah, I think we also chose Loughborough because obviously it's world renowned for its university and college, the sports side of things. Not only have a lot of elite sports people studied at Loughborough, they also go back there and train there now.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to be able to link up, bringing a sports card store to Loughborough fits perfectly with what Loughborough is all about. So we're hoping we can link up with the university and the college in some way. There are a few famous people, including Jude Bellingham, who went to Loughborough College. So, and in fairness to Jude, he does go back to Loughborough College now when he's back in the area, and just goes and visits people there. So hopefully we can get him in one day. That would be good.
Yeah, get a couple of these rookies in the window. Hopefully, he drives past and he actually wants to start collecting. But like I say, it's incredible to think that, especially within the UK, that the amount of athletes we've got, amount of superstars there are, that only a few of them we know. Obviously, quite a lot of them might collect their own stuff, but the exposure's not been there. Obviously, we know Foden dabbles in a bit of his stickers and his cards here and there. Obviously, Grealish, who has been part of top sets, Bellingham's been. But do you also wonder sometimes, like, how many other people might have their own cards or want to collect their own cards, but just don't know about it, or even they've signed 100,000 of these little stickers, but they might be like, where do these go? Like, having that shop aspect, someone might be like, know what, I might pop down there and then try and get some of my own items.
We obviously can't mention any names, but it's quite surprising, and it might surprise people how many, not just the sports people and footballers mainly, because that's what we deal with, not just them in person that collect cards, but how many of their family members do as well. So I can give you one interesting story without mentioning any names, but I can give you two actually. But one particular top player had ordered some cards from us, and he hadn't put the first line of his address on his order. So I had to phone him and say, we could do with the first line of the address. And he was great, in fairness, had a good chat with him. And another particular Scottish player had ordered some cards from us. And I said to Kelly, I said, that address don't look right. And not being completely up on my Scottish first and second division football, I phoned the player up and said, I'm not sure the address is right. There's no house number or anything. It was actually the name of the stadium. So I felt a bit silly with that one.
I was going to say, the only reason why I jogged my memory, because obviously I know there's a store down in Australia, actually Cherry Collectibles, and they recently had Caitlin Ford in, obviously the Arsenal and Matilda's international, which definitely didn't make me very jealous that she was in their store doing pictures and signings. It does create that aspect of potentially having people in there, whether it's them going in to do a box break, whether it's just to meet people, but hopefully being able to bring athletes and the collectors together. And I think it would not alone just make people like enjoy the hobby a bit more, but it creates memories, and that's what a lot of people are in this hobby for. You don't realize how many things you remember doing in hobby, people you meet. I think, like I say, and perfect examples, a lot of people with Tosin, for example, meeting him and talking to him, that you then see these people on telly and you're a bit like, well, it's a bit weird that I was talking to him the other week at a show. Is that aspect, obviously, in a dream scenario, you probably have everyone down at the show in terms of like different players, but is that another aspect that you'd love to work on in the future, whether it's in partnership with certain companies or just the players in general themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we plan to have trade nights and events regularly as we possibly can. Hopefully, with the events, we can, as I say, a little bit further down the line, maybe we can link up with Loughborough University and Loughborough College, and get some of these elite sports people to the store for the events. Yeah, I think it's great because the collector, we can all be a little starstruck. I can be starstruck, and you don't always have to meet these people in person. But if you see that they're doing what you're doing, they're collecting cards the same as we're collecting cards, it goes a long way sometimes. That,
as I say, it's like, for example, myself collecting certain players, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to collect. But then it's like that's the same for them. Oh, I used to grow up watching this player, and I want to collect their stuff, and it's just like an endless circle that it's like you feel like they're up on this pedestal because they're getting paid however much it may be or how famous they are. But at the end of the day, they want to collect, like some of them just want to collect their Premier League sticker books at the end of the day, and they just want them last few needs that they've got. But you don't necessarily think because they're on the sticker that they actually are going to collect it themselves.
But the really nice bit that we see is we'll see players' wives, girlfriends, mums that are buying their own sort of sons' cards a lot of the time. And sometimes we might curse them because they might, obviously with Football Cards Direct, we go back many seasons, and they might just put their son's name in the search, and then we're picking 30 cards from 30 different sets, which could take 2 hours. So, but yeah, that's lovely to see. You know, sometimes it makes you smile when you see things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and lastly, just talking about like the store that's going to open, it must be nice as well, like having the thought of having these trade nights, but not just trade nights. People will bring their personal collections along, not necessarily some cards that people might have ever seen before, or they might not even took out the house, but you're probably going to have quite a lot of big items or even just rare items in general come through the door. That must be quite a cool aspect as well, seeing what's out there, because no doubt, like for yourself, where you've ripped a lot of stuff, some of the cards you're seeing are incredible, but still there'd be some cards that you look at and be like, wow, that's a very impressive card. But some people don't let people know what they get sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, we see that more so now with Trade We. Obviously, some of the consignments we get in, and sometimes you open a box and it literally is wow as soon as you open the box, and then the next card's wow, and then it carries on. And to see, that's the beauty with Trade We, is for Owen that works up in Liverpool. I know he takes great delight in seeing some of the cards that are coming through as well. Exactly that with trade nights. You know, people are bringing their personal collections. We see it at shows. At often the night before the show when we're in a hotel somewhere and everybody's getting their boxes out, and some of the cards you see the night before the show are fantastic. So if we can replicate that in the shop, we will also be offering a drop-off viewing and collection service for Trade We. So there'll be a lot of high-value consignments there as well.
I was going to say, I think that's a perfect question, and it's actually going to be what I was going to ask as well. Is that some people just don't want to send via the post? That's like this, they're like packaging it up, then taking it to the post office. Like, especially some people, how busy if they're working, maybe working away from home. That if there was a place, they might be like, you know what, I'm actually in the area that day. I'll just drive past and drop it off. So it might even create a whole new aspect of people bringing in cards because they're just like, you know what, I've got this box. Do I want to send it? Yeah, I do, but it's a lot of money in there that the safe thought now of being like, I can hand it over in person. It's safe. It's there. It's ready for the next step. It must put a lot of people's minds to ease, especially with you as well, that rather than having everything going through the post, sometimes people might be like, oh yeah, I'm going to come in Thursday at 3:00. I'll give it to you then.
Yeah, absolutely. And also ripping boxes. You know, how many times will you rip a box and you want every card that comes out of that box? So you know, it can be one simple step really. You can walk into the shop, buy a box, rip the box, take the cards home with you that you want, consign the rest there and then.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very popular service, that one, especially especially if you're getting cards of your rival team that you don't want stepping foot in your house. It normally gets, like, for example, if I open a box and there's a few Tottenham cards in it, they don't even go past my front door. They just stay there, and I'm just like, if someone wants them, you can have them. Like, funny enough, normally Tottenham cards I leave out just stay there, but that's a story for another day. But obviously, we spoke about Football Cards Direct, Trade We, and obviously the store as well coming. But it seems like a very exciting time, obviously, with the consignment group, obviously the store coming, Football Cards Direct, all these sets coming out. Whereas most people look forward to the summer and having nice time off, it seems like it's going to be a very, very busy 4 to 8 to 12 weeks for you.
Yeah, I mean, we do manage to get away. We've got a great guy that works for us that can run the business for us when we're not there. So we are away in August. Thankfully, we're getting this first holiday of the year. Yeah, it's an exciting time though. I mean, we're at that point where there's some good hobby sets coming out. I've seen advertised around Barcelona Focus, which I believe is this next couple of days. I've seen that advertised here and there. Obviously, the Barcelona triplets there's last week was that with Tops.
Yeah.
So again, that looks a good set. We've got Museum coming up, which I believe is mid-June-ish now, somewhere along those lines. then obviously we've got UCC Chrome on the back of that. Plus, then you've got all your Select La Liga that's just come out. So it's an exciting time for cards. This time of year always is, because it's when all the hobby sets really kick in.
As I say, especially normally without a Euros or World Cup, it's going to be interesting this time of year. Just the conclusion of all the Premier League sets, like you said, the UCC sets as well, but merged in with the Euros, which always has its own hype that comes with it. And it'd be interesting to see what releases come from that, because it's quite an interesting one, the international landscape at the moment with licensing and like that. So for you, obviously, with the Euros as well, it's just going to have another probably 150,000 base cards onto it. But surely as well for you, the base, it's going to be quite fun, the Euros, the hype that goes with it, seeing what sells and whatnot. And it all ties in together. Hopefully when the shops open, people will be opening Euro stuff. Depending on who wins, then they might consign it, or they might keep it, or might grade it. It's going to be quite an intriguing time, like, because who knows who's going to win it. Obviously, we're all hoping England do, but who's the breakout star? Which cards are going to go mental? You might have a card in your display case in the shop that might be worth £5 at the beginning of Euros, but at the end of it might be worth £100.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this Euros, nobody knows, do they? I mean, obviously Haaland's not there, so a lot of people will be looking at Mbappe, but then you've got a lot of youngsters that are there that who knows? Who knows which one's going to break out and shine at the end of it?
Yeah, no, it's going to be an absolute fantastic few weeks and months. But like we say, a massive thank you for obviously joining us on the podcast. No doubt we'll be reconvening actually in person at the store, if not before, which would be great fun. Hopefully get an episode in. But we wish you and obviously Kelly and the whole team a massive good luck for the future. And no doubt we'll be following the journey very closely on the store, the consignments and everything that goes with it.
Great. Thanks very much for having us on.
I'd say just all the links are down below. Do please check out the consignments. That's a great fun, especially on route to work. I'll go through all the cards and try and not spend all my money before I've got it, but it's always great fun. But like we say, a massive thank you for every single person who's joined in for this episode of the Top Loaded Podcast. I hope everyone out there is staying safe, doing well, getting that little bit of sun in with the rain. But most importantly, I hope everyone's buying, selling, trading, and all that good jazz. But most importantly, happy hobbying and good night.